right. We're going to go ahead and get started and open our time in prayer, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sandra to introduce Nancy and Nora to us. So let's just look to God in prayer. Let's pray. God, we are thankful for the opportunity that we have to be here in this place. We're thankful for this congregation. We're thankful for its faithful witness over these many years. And Lord, we look forward to the future of continuing that as you give us able and as you give us strength and courage and grace to move forward in that. Lord, we want to be a beacon of your light and your beauty in this community, in this place, in this corner. So, Father, give us your ingenuity and grace as we hear these exciting plans that have been in the works for some time now. And Lord, we're thankful for the gifts that have been given to get us to this point. And we pray now, Lord, as we look at them, Father, that you would be honored and glorified in it. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Sandra. Hang on, I'm sorry. Just want to introduce some of the arts team, Daryl, and Rebecca's here, Tim, and am I forgetting anybody? Sandra, of course, myself, am I forgetting anybody? No.
Well, and also Janie Bray and
Yes.
Larry Schmidt and John Wynn.
John Wynn and Graham has been on
And
as
Glenn
well.
Ross.
And Graham
And Glenn Rossi.
So,
So that's the group that's been on this so far. And
yes. And Adele Larkin had been too.
yes.
Is this? Good morning, friends, or good afternoon. We are so excited to share with you today the preliminary architectural plans that have been amazingly designed and I would say crafted for OEPC by Nancy Bastian and Nora Bergston of CBP Architects. Please join me in warmly welcoming Nancy, who is the managing partner, and Nora, an associate with the firm. Kindly take a minute afterwards and greet them in person. I had the great pleasure of working with this firm years ago. They were superlative then and they are superlative today. From the outset, Nancy and Nora not only have listened to us, they have heard us. They thoughtfully processed all that we shared and showed a clear understanding of and respect for our vision and hopes while honoring and embracing the opportunities of our beautiful facility and campus. Before we begin, I'd like to share a couple housekeeping issues and give a little preface before I hand over the mic to Nancy and Nora. As to housekeeping things, a new email has been set up. It's called grow@oepc.org. It will be shared in the e-news and in the bulletin. So we would ask that any questions you have, any input, any suggestions, you send it to that. We will direct it to the right person and gladly give an answer. Also, this presentation is being recorded and a link will be shared in the e-news for all of those who are unable to attend, if anyone is housebound on this lovely sunny day, or anyone wanting to listen to the presentation again. Lastly, we would ask that you would hold any questions until the end of the presentation, and Nancy and Nora can then address those questions. Also, Daryl has a mic, so if you do have a question, please raise your hand and he'll bring the mic over to you. We want to make sure everyone is easily heard. You also have on your chair a handout. It is not a comprehensive setting of renderings and a site plan. Please look at that at your own leisure so you're not distracted by the handouts. Everything will be projected up here. The renderings also will be here and we can keep them in Fellowship Hall for the weeks ahead for anybody to look at. There will be a more comprehensive set of renderings, site plans, etc., 3D massing that will be in the link that will be posted on the website. So you'll have every single slide and the ability to look at that then. Also, as a little preface to our presentation, please rest in knowing that every single step of this process has been, first and foremost, prayerfully, thoughtfully, and carefully undertaken. CBP's scope of work was the product of the Vision Committee's amazing and thorough work, merged with Art's thorough and comprehensive discussions. We were guided by Pastor Dan as we sought to use this facility to fulfill our mission, to serve Christ, our congregation, and the neighboring community. It has been an amazing affirmation to me personally, too, because we have been absolutely unanimous on every key decision in our committee. Also, kindly remember that while the plans are being presented, they are preliminary. This is a very fluid and ongoing process. It is collaborative. It is not a committee or a team effort alone. We want your input, we want your feedback, and that is eagerly sought. So we would again ask you to please use the email, come to us, you know who all of us are, and you are so welcome to any of our committees, and we really would welcome that. So please do use that email. So what brought us to today? About a year and a half ago, we hired CBP to undertake a feasibility study of our facility. You probably are asking, what is a feasibility study? And Nancy will discuss that as she and Nora walk us through the plans, through the programming and design phase. In addition, though, it's important to note that the feasibility study also reviewed OEPC's internal and external security. It analyzed our handicapped accessibility, and we conducted an MEP review of our systems. MEP stands for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing, which was conducted by engineering experts in each specific area. So just as we all go to a doctor every year for an annual physical, the building underwent a physical. We looked at all the systems, their life expectancy, what needed, upgrades, etc. Today's focus is to review the plans. Any MEP questions we can discuss it at a later date. Lastly, the last kind of phase of our feasibility study is that once the preliminary plans are tweaked and address any input, they will go to cost estimating. So CBP will engage a professional cost estimator they will enlist the services of a cost estimating firm who will review the plans and prepare a construction cost estimate. So with any alternate pricing, because there are some alternate things, and Nancy and Nora will touch on some of those. So without further ado, please welcome Nancy and Nora, and I will hand over the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning, everybody. I am Nancy Bastian from CBP Architects. Just very briefly, we are a Philadelphia-based architecture firm. We're mid-sized. I think there's 18 of us. We're located in Old City, downtown at 2nd and Market. I have been with the firm for, I think, 36 years. It's a long time. The firm's been around for 41 years, and Nora's been working with me for at least 10 years, right? 11 years. We do all kinds of projects. We do a lot of institutional work. We do a lot of residential work, some civic work. But we really love these kinds of projects where we come and meet with a group who are trying to figure out a puzzle. And this place is a puzzle, it's fair to say. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what we saw when we came, and then Nora's going to walk you through a little bit of what we're proposing. So just to orient everybody, what's up on the screen right now, even though it says proposed site plan, that's wrong, sorry. I just wanted to orient you all to the existing site plan. Here you see is the sanctuary, here's Fellowship Hall, here's the rest of your building. There's Paper Mill Road and Church Road. First time I came, they had me come in here and park off of Church Road. I came up and knocked on a door and I'm like, something's wrong. So finally made my way around here and came in here, which I realized is the main entrance. So that was the first thing I wrote down in my notebook. That's a bit confusing. But,
GPS.
GPS, yes.
The address and that's where it takes you.
Yes. So anyway, here's your main entrance. Obviously, here's your main parking. About 110 spaces. You have a beautiful, large campus that accommodates quite a bit of parking. Here is that secondary parking, the playground area, as well as, is it the mini?
The Little Man's.
The Little Man's here, and then the manse here. So, you know, you have a wonderful property. I just want to orient everybody to where we are. And as you all know, here is the main entrance into the church, and with the handicap entrance on the side. So Nora, you want to go to the next page. This slide I find really interesting because it helps explain how your building got to where it is today. The main parts of the building were built besides the sanctuary, were built in the 1950s. So the space we're in right now, Fellowship Hall, which is up here in blue with the number 1, was constructed around 1952. It was soon added onto with this addition here, which is where the library is in this hall. And then a few years later, a second addition was added with the preschool classrooms, that 2-story space with the basement. And then the sanctuary came along in 1970, and then soon after that, the kitchen was added. And then in the early 1990s, this L-shaped grouping of rooms was added with all the offices and then these terrace rooms. But some of the challenges that you have here are tied to the fact that the building was kind of added onto in a piecemeal manner, and there was not really an overall master plan for doing that. So I think, you know, part of what we are trying to address is the fact that, for instance, this was an exterior wall, which are where these doors are here, and it hasn't been an exterior wall since 1991. So how do you circulate and deal with that? Are some of the challenges that we found here. Nora, if you want to just go to the next slide. So here's a slide of your existing first floor plan, and I think a building you all know very well. And what we were looking at when we came on board were a couple of main issues. One was the preschool. As you know, it's a very thriving, wonderful, lively preschool here. On this first floor, there are 2 preschool classes here, but then in the basement, if you go to the next slide, there is a preschool classroom down here underneath the sanctuary, and then if you go to the next slide, there is a preschool classroom on the second floor. So that was a concern that the preschool is in multiple places throughout the building. If we go back to the first floor, the other issue that we were really charged with looking at was really this area here. And the real desire, and I think what really came through in all of our conversations with you all is there is a really warm, inviting, caring community here, which you should all be really proud of. And there was a real desire to create a space where people could really feel that it was much easier to come together. And when you really look at it, the sanctuary was added in such a way that you could come in this door, come to service, and leave out that door and never see any other part of the building. It also doesn't really provide much of a space. There is a space here, a lobby, but it's very tight. I just saw you all circulate through it. It's a space you move through, and then you get to this Fellowship Hall space. But throughout the week, we really learned that Fellowship Hall is used for a whole host of activities and uses, sometimes overlapping, and that it can cut off access to the sanctuary. And the sanctuary doesn't have as much of a presence in the campus or in this building as it really could or really should. It feels very isolated and cut off in many ways. And what we heard was a real desire to find a way to have it feel much more a part of the fabric of the building. There were a host of other things we were asked to look at, and some of the things we realized is you have a lot of entrances to get into this building. I believe there's 16, but I'm not sure. 17. But a building of this size does not need to have 17 exterior doors. And like I did that first day where I was knocking on a door, there was nobody on the other side of the door. and not that door probably should be. No, I think I was here. I don't know where I was. Wherever I was, I knew that no one was there. So that was another issue. And I think that was something we wanted to look at. Do you really need 17 ways in and out of the building? And then the other one, I think major thing we looked at is the way that people tend to come into the building is the same way that the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds are coming into the nursery school with their parents in the morning. And that is there a way to better enter and exit the building that's clearer? And is there a more distinct way for the nursery school to function without layering on a whole host of other people coming in that door? Is there a way to have that be a little more autonomous? So this is that existing first floor. I don't think we need to go through all the spaces. We have the boards here of these existing plans, but as I said, you know the building, the preschool, the offices and the library. Here we are at Fellowship Hall and the sanctuary. If you want to go to the basement, the other interesting thing about your building is that as it was built over 40 years, some of the building has basement under it and some of it does not. So Fellowship Hall, the very first structure that was built here, where we are now, does not have a basement under it. This addition that was done in the early 90s does not have a basement under it. Obviously, there is a basement under the sanctuary, and there is a basement underneath the preschool classrooms. And so below them at the basement level is what you call the Pepper Room, which has a kitchen. And then underneath the sanctuary is that fourth preschool room, the music ministry room, the nursery, and what was the junior church. I don't think it's really the junior church anymore, but sort of not really used space down there. We also noted that it's hard to get down there. There's multiple ways to get down there. It doesn't feel particularly inviting to go down there. I think some parents don't feel great leaving their kids in the nursery down there. And so that was an area we wanted to look at. As Sandra mentioned also, that we looked at handicapped accessibility as part of our study and analysis, and there are handicapped accessible ways to get into the building, but some of them aren't ideal. We always like, ideally, for everyone to come into the building the same way and not have there be a second way if you're mobility challenged. So that was part of what we looked at. And then the other thing is there are a bunch of bathrooms, if you just go back to that first floor, that are not handicapped accessible. And in particular, here off of the sanctuary, there are two very small restrooms that if someone was in a wheelchair, they would not, I don't think, be able to use. And they don't meet current code requirements for use. And then there's some that are halfway up a stair that, obviously are not handicapped accessible. So I feel like I've gone on too long, but those are sort of the issues that we encountered here when we first came and started looking, knowing that you have sort of an incredible, and the sanctuary is very, very beautiful. It is warm and inviting and it's peaceful. It's just a beautiful space. So but it feels so a little disconnected. And there are lots of other real strengths here. How can we pull that all together and give you a space that feels all of the same piece and not the 1950s piece and the 1990s piece, but all thought of together as a whole. So I'm going to let Nora now talk you through some of the ideas we have.
Welcome, everyone. I too share what Nancy said about having met with Sandra and some of the people about seeing firsthand what a warm community this is. And so that is part of our thinking when we look at these new spaces is how can we reinforce that? And one of the main things that this slide shows a little bit, but I hesitate after saying that there have been so many additions that we're proposing another addition. But in some ways it really is to tie everything together. And that's really the point. It seems like every addition was worthwhile, and yet somehow it's kind of missing this connective piece. And so what's shown here in blue is really just thinking about, right at the center, is there something that we can propose that would allow for a place to gather and come together as a community as you're using this building. So that's the main issue. We would still, we still have this formal church entrance here, but we think that there's a possibility of creating this new addition that will also enhance the use of that beautiful courtyard that you have. Right now it seems like people kind of move in a U shape, but how can you really activate that beautiful space, the lovely flowers that are there. So anyway, that's kind of the overall idea, and I'll show you a little bit more about what we're proposing. So if we go to the next one. So this is actually that existing plan, but just showing that area in blue as to, in a little bit more detail of where that would go. So it's just right outside these terrace rooms, and also trying to make a connection into this existing lobby. This is the existing floor plan, again, with that blue area, but if you go to the next floor plan, that'll start to show a little bit more what that means. So as Nancy said, she had a hard time finding the front door, but it would be nice to have a singular front entry that everyone could use. And essentially what that means is sort of gradually ramping up so that all folks coming to the church could come into one central area. We could still maintain the sort of formal entrance to the sanctuary here, but most people could come in and out through this entry that would be part of the new addition. And again, just create a lobby, a place for people to pass each other with some space. So that's kind of the main idea, but off of this lobby is essentially creating circulation and a place for people to stop and have a chat and maybe sit and have a cup of coffee, or even after a service, really gather in a meeting room. So this would be sort of transformed into an area of gathering space. And what that does is that it means that folks don't have to go through these doors as they're moving around, but you have a dedicated area for when events are happening in this fellowship hall, that you really can go to other parts of the church or sit and chat in this circulation area. So that's really sort of the main idea of this proposal, is really trying to create a space to allow for some of that gathering. And some of the details, again, because these are very preliminary, we haven't sorted all the details out, but you could also imagine even this fellowship hall kind of opening up just like you have doors there, so it really, a lot of these spaces can bleed together, and yet, if some event is happening here in this space, then, there's circulation that can happen outside of that. And again, somebody sitting at a reception desk could come here, could be here, so that would just be kind of the main entry for the church. And then just some other details, as Nancy mentioned, you could transform the restrooms here so they're ADA accessible just off of the sanctuary. We've also added another door to the sanctuary to alleviate that pinch point where everyone has to come through one door, but we think that would really help make this connection between the sanctuary and other parts of the church. You'll see that one thing we've added here is the elevator. We know that right now there's no way to get up or down from an ADA perspective other than using the stairs, so that's a challenge. And we think that this is actually a really good spot for an elevator because, again, this is the wing that has both the second floor and the basement, and so all the programming that occurs here works. There's also happens to be a little pop-up on the roof, so we think it could accommodate it. So for many reasons, we could still keep the stair, but we'd also have an elevator here. And again, this just is a nice, located very centrally so that all parts of the church can be accessed using the elevator. Just a few other details. Again, we're not totally transforming everything, just a few other points is that right now, again, to get to the kitchen, you essentially have to walk through the back of Fellowship Hall. And although it's nice and accessible, there might be times when you may not want to have food coming through when something is happening here. So just like the chairs are set up kind of towards the back there, you can imagine just having a corridor that just allows for things to come and go to access that kitchen. And we don't think it would really adversely affect this nice, beautiful space. So that would just be a help in terms of getting where you want to go and accessing that kitchen. There would still be room for storage and a meeting room, so we think it would still function well in terms of the space use, but you'd be able to access it. The other things on this floor, again, the offices, we haven't laid out exactly where people are going, but the one thing that we think would be really important is just locating that preschool office right adjacent to the preschool entry. And I'll get to it as we talk about, but one of the major programming ideas is really to consolidate the preschool classrooms. It doesn't, it's not ideal to have the preschool in various, downstairs and upstairs and on the first floor. So the idea is that now that we have this entrance for the main church, that this really could be a dedicated preschool entrance with a preschool office right there, and then all the preschool programming would happen in this area. So I think that mostly covers some of the interventions here, but again, the big idea is to just try and have this nice space, which again, you could have a patio there and then, activate this green area. So it really is kind of the center and the heart of that, of the plan. So going down to the basement, as Nancy mentioned, there are basements, but they don't connect. So in this wing of the, under where we are, there's no basement, but then in this wing of the building, you'd be able to take that elevator down and then get to the pepper room and also a meeting room. There was some thought that the pepper room right now isn't necessarily utilized that well, but it's well utilized, but could it be reshaped and reformatted in a way? So this just makes some tweaks to that so that there's still a kitchen area, but they might have if there's an event or something going on here, that there'd be even a separate breakout for meeting room down here. So that would just be small renovations to the pepper room. The other thing you may know is that there are stairs that actually go down into that space from the outside. And I'm not sure how often they get used, but they do not seem very necessary. Again, it's another way for, it's another maintenance issue, and it's another entrance that doesn't, out of the 17, that might be one that we could get rid of. So you'll see that we're not showing any entrance or exit there, that could just really be filled in. And so you would still have multiple ways to get to this room even without that access from the outside. On this side, again, we're relocating the preschool that was here up to the second floor, and when we get to the second floor plan, I'll show you that. But we are adding some bathrooms and shower and laundry, just possibilities for future programming. It's just that you will have the space, and if that was a desire, there would be space for, just some bathrooms and laundry and shower facilities, depending on what programming may come. And again, a lot of this would be the same, nursery and music ministry. The main thing is, as a result of these two basements not connecting, that there would need to be a second elevator that would allow folks from the sanctuary to come down to the nursery, for example, rather than carrying children down the stairs. So this is a possibility. We think if we needed those two, this allows accessibility to both levels in both wings of the building. We did entertain the possibility of actually making a connection, which in my mind sort of makes the most sense, is that underground you'd almost build a tunnel so that you could go from this part of the building to this part of the building. We don't know how feasible that is. I think it can be done, but from a cost perspective, we're not sure of if it would be cost prohibitive. So that's why we're showing at least a second elevator here. But that is something to consider and that we've thought about. We just don't know how feasible that would be. But that would really make the campus much more connected, because you would just need one elevator, and from there you could go to all places essentially. So that's just something that we are considering. But this would be a way for folks to get up and down from the sanctuary as a second means in that elevator. So I think the next slide is the second floor. So again, not too many changes here, other than the fact that we are bringing that preschool up to adjoin its friends. So all 4 preschools will be in the same area, 2 on this floor and 2 on the floor below. This elevator, again, would be able to access the second floor And then we've relocated the middle school youth program to just above, on that side, on the second floor adjacent to Fellowship Hall. So you can capture some of that space that we use for the corridor, and this could be a really nice room so that all the programming could be together. And again, if they needed to use other spaces, they could just go down the stairs or via this elevator. So that's sort of the main change to the second floor, just making sure that the preschool is all co-located together. Right, so this just goes back to the beginning of showing, a relatively modest addition. It's only about 1,100 square feet, but it's right in the heart of your building, and we think it would help really create that sense of community and connection and have all these parts and pieces of the building come together. The next slide here, this was done, just really to show the sense of scale of what that would look like. As you know, you have this beautiful sanctuary, and it's sort of, the second floor steps down to this first floor, so it would be a relatively modest addition, but right in the heart and right trying to activate this courtyard. And again, I can just imagine events coming out here and then having a place in the patio and then things spilling out onto the yard. And again, just showing this sort of main entrance to the church. And this is intended just to show approximation of what that, what we call massing. Like, it's not a giant 2-story structure, but we still think it would be effective in sort of providing that connection that we're looking to do. And again, we can still have the nice formal entrance to the church that could get used, but this would be sort of more of the day-to-day entry for everyone coming, to the church. So I think that might be the last slide.
Yep.
So just time for questions, or I know that was like a lot of
Wait
words.
for the mic. Bill?
Yes, I have two concerns that were not addressed in your presentation.
Sure.
The first is extending the elevator in the sanctuary building so that the balcony on the second floor can be accessed.
Okay.
I think we've seen that a need for those of us that use the balcony for a long time. Secondly, we have stuff stored here, there, and everywhere throughout the church. And a lot of it is kind of like you put your foot on it and try and slam the door. Is there any thought about trying to redo the storage and consolidate so we don't have stuff every place and you have to know what location it is before you go there?
Yeah. Sure. I was just going to say, in that basement floor, we do have some areas of storage incorporated into the plans, but I do think that potentially, there is some allowance once we've relocated those, the preschool room and the junior church, which I guess don't know, that would be a place for storage. But, we can certainly think about adding more consolidated storage if that was needed, but haven't gotten too far into the weeds about how many, what kind of storage you need. So we could certainly think about that going forward. Add to that.
That's been an ongoing discussion, how to streamline things, how to make our spaces more efficient, and also in the process, I know there's been a lot of culling that's been going on of just decades of things, like what do we need to keep, what do we need to let go of. So I think that very much, we are very cognizant of that need, and that is something that has been an ongoing discussion. So that is being addressed.
One example of something that may not be obvious storage-wise that you get when you start to consolidate here is, I'm well aware that there's preschool material stored all over the building, all over the campus, because the preschool is spread all over the campus. Once you consolidate that frees up a lot of that storage for the purposes that those rooms will then be used for. So it's something to consider as well. Karen?
Could you clarify, has the library been eliminated or relocated?
Well, there was a suggestion that it had the potential to be relocated and to make the library more accessible. So right now, we're actually showing, just from a very schematic standpoint, that it might actually be within this circulation area. So there wasn't, that we heard, a need for it to be locked or behind closed doors, you know, with a key, but that those materials could be really more front and center and more accessible to those. So right now, that was the initial idea, is really just putting it right in the main circulation area so that people could access those books and they'd be a little bit more front and center. So, but.
The corridor that you're talking about adding in Fellowship Hall, how many feet would we lose in Fellowship Hall? to do
Here.
that? Yeah.
I would say maybe, 7 feet at the back. So it would really just come to that door, just on the other side of that door, the kitchen there. So we understand there's a lot of programming that happens here, and, we even were gonna lay out tables just to make sure the tables could fit. So we're aware, we think that that's almost used as a circulation anyway, almost, that people, you don't put the chairs all the way up to the end, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get to the kitchen. So it seems like it would just be natural to dedicate that space and then make this, make this room without having so much transition going through.
Thank you. One more question.
Sure.
The designated lobby, the new lobby that you have,
Yeah.
is that going to be a solid wall behind there? Is that going to be like right there? Is that
No.
is that one big area?
This is all one big area. This just shows like some dashed lines because that's where the existing wall is. So there might be kind of like an opening, but it would you'd be able to walk all right through. So yes, everything that's in white is all circulation to be able to go from one to the other.
So I guess following up on this, so that circulation or the reception area
Yes.
would almost be kind of a low desk open
Yes.
space where
Exactly.
if somebody did follow the GPS
Yeah.
and they went to that Church Road side,
Right.
there would be someone there to acknowledge them, see them and things like that. That's where like a receptionist type person would sit.
Sure,
Right.
sure. Yeah, I mean, depending on, if this gets rounded out a little bit or how it gets configured, you could have it make, with some visibility to this entrance as well.
Just on Fellowship Hall, we got rid of that.
Yes, for example, there are doors, I think it's just right out here. There's another door kind of right next to this door. So that's just another example of maybe we don't need or use that door.
That was the original sanctuary door that's never used.
Exactly. So now that you have a whole other sanctuary and multiple ways to get into this space, that was just an example of another door that just, again, that could be dedicated storage and without having people coming through, so.
And to the storage question, we're actually limited in what we can store there because while it's still an exit, fire code says we can't, it has to be cleared. If that truly became a closet, that's a very large closet that you could put shelving in and add storage.
Right, exactly, and you have plenty of ways to come in and out of this room. You definitely need 2 ways out of a room this size, but we have multiple ways to get out of that room, so we don't really need this exit here.
Couple of comments and a question. Presbyterians love to eat,
Yeah.
so I assume there'll be provision for us to put out our food and march through the line. Another comment is that it looks like creating that entrance and consolidating the preschool will help us deal with some very appropriate security procedures we have in place, which on the other side of the coin become an inconvenience when you try to get into the church to do certain things. So with that separation, I assume there could be freer access through that and then limitations further in.
Exactly.
Show that door. We've added a door in the preschool going in the hallway.
Oh, here.
Yes.
Exactly. Right, I
It's very
forgot that
porous
detail,
right now.
But we added a door here, so theoretically, these can have whatever security.
That would be the
you want.
security point there. Great.
Exactly. So you'd have a security point here, but then also another secure point here.
Yeah.
And at the
And then,
second floor.
just wondering, there have been occasions when we have multiple adult classes going simultaneously.
Yes.
And in those cases, we would make use of these rooms. Is there provision space for adequate classrooms?
Well, there's three. Fellowship Hall, Meeting Room 1, and Meeting Room 2.
Right. I
Oh,
still
okay.
think there's the possibility of having a meeting, oh, sorry.
Right.
And the library too, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, again, this kind of gets into the details, but theoretically, these could be pocket doors, and this could be a room itself. You know, so I think there's lots of possibilities in terms of doors and sliding doors to open things up or close them down as you need it.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
Just speaking to Barb's question, so, and again, everything's really preliminary and very fluid, so this is just, if you can envision, the idea is really to open up, to have the ability to close off the spaces, but to have visual, whether it's glass panels or pockets that would disappear into the walls, to be able to open up to 1 and 4, open up to the terrace rooms, open up to the new space. So that would have the flexibility, and that's more construction details, but that's something we talked about. So there is this visual expansion, but also the ability to close off the spaces.
Exactly, yeah.
Over here.
2 questions, please. The elevator in the sanctuary, is that blocking the current handicap ramp that goes up?
Well, yes, and at the moment, we are suggesting that everyone would be able to come in through this main entry, just by a subtle ramp over this, you know, I forget if it's 40 or 50 feet, that you'd be able to ramp up slowly so that everyone would be able to use this lobby. And theoretically, you wouldn't need that designated handicapped ramp. So,
If I'm
yeah.
coming only to Sanctuary Church on Sunday, I'm gonna go from the parking lot all the way down that ramp, all the way to the front, and then all the way back in someplace.
yes, it does extend the route a little bit. It definitely
Our-
does extend the route.
Our current handicap spot is back right where we remove benches. Back right.
Oh, right here.
The last pew, inside, the last pew
Oh, I
has been
see what you're
removed,
saying.
right, so that where
I see.
a chair can comfortably
Yes.
be.
Yes.
So that's a long route.
It is a longer route, I agree, and that's why I would love to not have this elevator. But I think that's just the location that we thought might work best, but you know, we can look at other locations. I mean, even just moving it to this other side, for example, you know, but again, there were just multiple ways to get in, so we chose this side, not thinking that you would necessarily need to have that if you had a main entrance, but I do understand it is longer. That's definitely
And the second
downside.
is the new addition you had in blue there.
Yes.
Looked like a flat roof.
Well, I wouldn't, the massing and the roofs haven't been sorted out completely.
Well, I'll just
So,
say, it looked like a flat roof.
yes,
And we had troubles putting these roofs on
Yes.
with the township with pitch.
right. I mean, they would have some pitch to
Well,
it.
there's no pitch
so-
left.
Yeah, because it's tight, what you're saying, is that it really goes down to a low point, essentially. Yeah,
Let's
yeah, so it
remember,
would be a
like,
subtle,
yeah, let's remember, this is preliminary. These are not construction documents, this is preliminary. So all those details get worked out, we're not at that point. That's something, everything gets worked out as you get into the process. But
Good.
it's excellent to know that.
These are good questions, because, for example, as we evaluate whether or not we want to do a tunnel, that's a consideration now that's another pro to not having that elevator there, because then you have handicap access to the rear of the sanctuary. There were some other questions, I think I saw Karen come up again.
It's working.
I have not heard any mention of a kitchen. Is there any improvement the kitchen involved in these plans?
Yes, I'll help Nancy speak to that, because there was somebody that actually came out and did a kitchen review. We just didn't get into those details, but I'll let Nancy kind of talk through whatever she found.
There's not too much to add, but we did have a kitchen consultant who met us out here on a Thursday night, months ago, who walked into that kitchen and basically said most of it has to be replaced. So it's not particularly up to code, functional, and we know it doesn't really work for you. And Rebecca had a good idea of a pantry off the kitchen being really necessary, and the first thing the kitchen consultant said, absolutely, that's a great idea. So there, that in our report, that will be mentioned, that the feedback we got is that really needs top to bottom. I don't think there was much to be salvaged in there. Maybe
I don't
The
think
refrigerator,
beyond the
freezers.
refrigerator and freezer, we're not
Yeah.
salvaging anything.
Yeah, so the mixture of wood cabinets with the wrong kind of countertops, all kinds of things, but that really would need to be replaced. The kitchen, we didn't really look at the kitchen off of the Pepper Room because we decided we know it should be replaced, but it does not need to be a commercial kitchen. It can be a very simple kitchen with very simple appliances, so it's not at that level at all, but to really focus on this kitchen.
Yes. With the outside stairs that have been removed, is there any ideas of utilizing that space to maybe extend the one meeting room? Or go up even to the second floor to extend that area? Because removing the stairs to the left,
From the Pepper Room?
yeah, left of the Pepper Room, I mean, are we just gonna fill that in or try
Yeah,
to?
we could, maybe you just fill it
uh,
in short, just because we didn't think that it was really necessary, because you have other places to get to that place, so.
You mentioned the windows too.
Yes, and there are windows that you can open up, which I think are covered now.
Yeah.
So that would let a lot of natural light into that space as well. But no, we just thought this, it's a maintenance with rain and all kinds of things going down there and security. It just seemed like you could just fill it in and no one would be the wiser, so.
My question, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, it's working now.
Yeah.
The entrance during the week that you call the preschool entrance,
Yes.
will the offices in that area continue to be the same? And because I feel like your new entrance is for occasions, but practically speaking, that will remain as it is, basically?
Well, it will be space for offices. How they're configured is still to be determined. And so, there might be someone here, but we anticipate everyone being able to come into this main entrance and have somebody at a desk here, and that offices are, still in this location. It's just not clear who's where necessarily.
Yeah, well, it just seems, it's one more person that has to be there if you're coming in that entrance during the week, and I question that's necessary. At this point, you get to the door and you're let in if you're supposed to be here.
No, that's true, that there is a little bit of a, space between this reception person and people in the offices.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was, what may have tipped the scales a little bit is the idea that the preschool entry could be autonomous. And so that was the idea of really just trying to make that its own entrance and providing a different way for folks coming to the church.
So then the thought that there would 5 days a week need to be a person at the entrance that's back in the middle, because that's where everybody will be expected to enter.
But is there somebody here currently that?
There's volunteers everywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's the intention.
Just a comment about that. Don't think about where Dara and Tony and everybody is there as they're staying there, and now we have to add someone. We very much, most likely, would move Dara or someone to be closer to that welcome center so that it serves the exact same purpose as the current entry. where she sees people coming in. There's opportunities along that office wall next to the greeting rooms for there to be perhaps windows or something like that. I think there are windows right now, at least where the platform is there. So there's that becoming the main entrance will create a much more welcoming space, and it'll still operate as a functional kind of, check-in for Dara and whatnot.
I just have a comment. First of all, I think you did an amazing job with the existing structure to change it the way I think most of us want it to be changed, okay? And I think the addition coming in through the courtyard is spectacular. That's my opinion, but I think the opinion of everybody would be that we owe Sandra and her team a real vote of thanks for the hard work.
It has been so collaborative, and it's really been a joy. I mean, yeah, we just really, it's been such a joy working with you guys. I know our work is not done, and just everybody on our team, it's been, like I said, we've been unanimous on every key decision that we've had. So these guys have done the lion's share, so thank you. Can I just add something about the administrative offices? For all of our discussions, that probably is not something we focused on, because again, that is more of a construction document phase, is that correct to say? That it would be really, right, design phase. So the administrative offices, again, this is very preliminary and it's very fluid. So who goes where is not something we spent much time. The focus has been this pod, I mean, again, taking the vision committees and the needs of the church and where the church is going, growing our outreach, what is the priority? So it's been the pod, the preschool's now stacked, and the youth program is phenomenal. If that elevator goes in, you now have the downstairs area connected to up here. So all of the youth is basically consolidated, and the preschool is stacked and it is secure. So we're taking I mean, just like any budget project, you say, what are the most important things? This is what we have gotten from all of you, from all the work the Vision Committee did, the work we've done, from Nancy and Nora's amazing, there you are, input of what are the priorities, so.
Yeah. That's why we stamped everything preliminary.
I'll repeat what Sandra said at the beginning. There's an email called grow@oepc.org. grow@oepc.org, and it'll be in the e-news. A recording of this session, as well as a digital copy of what you saw on screen, will also be made available.
That's great. So we're gonna close here, and if you have some more specific questions, or if you want to get up and close and see a little bit more, you're welcome to come. We'll turn the lights back on so you can see a little bit better. Just want to give a plug though. I mean, what's happening here during the week is just amazing. Thursday was like, I mean, we had 30 kids, people. We had 30 kids the first time. They were all in this room around, dinner, and God is doing some amazing things in this place. And so we're excited for that. And we hope that you're beginning to help catch that as well. There's a huge need, I think, as you know, during the week as people come in, just to have a place where they can hang out and have a cup of coffee. I think if we had, as part of the vision team, and as we're talking about that, to have that for preschool families that we come in and say, hey, come down here and have a cup of coffee, sit and talk, instead of in the hallway or just, so there's all these neat opportunities that we have to see to happen and to grow, and it's pretty exciting. So we need your prayers. We need your prayers as we contemplate next steps and what that looks like. And again, we're thankful for all the work of the team, and Bob Asher was part of that we forgot Bob's name. Sorry, Bob, that was bad. But he's been part of that team as well. So just want to thank everyone for that. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Nora, for coming. So let's just close in prayer, and then feel free to come up and look at the plans. Father, again, we thank you for what you're doing in this place, and we give you all the praise and all the glory, Father. And it's for you, and it's because of you, Father, that we exist and why we're here. And so, Lord, we want to steward what you have given to us and use it for your glory and for the furtherance of your kingdom. We bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I appreciate your friendship. It's really good.
That's all.